Yeah, hello, good morning, everyone. And welcome to Constromart's Knowledge and Experience Sharing Series, Volume 3, Number 2. And our topic for today's discussion is on leadership and team collaboration, decision-making and problem-solving skills. And we are thrilled to have you join us for this engaging and insightful discussion. My name is Antoinette Salmata Gabi Hayes, your host for today's session. And topic for today promises to be an exciting one. And as the presentation would equip us with the knowledge and tools necessary to ensure our leadership abilities and foster effective team collaboration within the built environment we find ourselves. And then to do us the honors of sharing his extensive knowledge and experience on this relevant topic is Mr. Richard Osei-Anim. So Mr. Richard Osei-Anim is a seasoned professional with a rich experience of working for renowned companies in London and diverse industries across Africa. And as the managing partner of the Hatchery and Coral Reef Innovation Group, he is spearheading the integration of AI and technology in education throughout Africa, making a significant impact on digital inclusion in Africa. So as an enthusiast about driving change, Richard recently participated in a remarkable 10,000 kilometer drive from Accra to London to raise awareness about his digital literacy gap in Ghana and Africa. Richard has to his credit an MBA from Durham University Business School and serves in various director roles. Right at this time, I would hand over to our speaker to take us through this topic. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you. It's a wide-ranging conversation. As usual, I only have 30 minutes to go through material that is usually a full course or for a semester. So it's really touch points on a few ideas, which hopefully we can do a deeper dive on later on. But for the purposes of the time, I'm going to touch on a few slides and then take some questions. So, okay. Background, I've already been introduced, so let me skip this. The topic navigates uncertain situations, foster teamwork, strategic decisions for positive impact, hopefully after these few minutes of engagement. So effective decision-making, ability to lead, motivate teams, and explore different decision-making models. Okay, so there's a knowledge management protocol. Starts with data at the bottom of the pyramid, information, data with context. You move on to knowledge, which is information with meaning, knowledge with purpose, intelligence and knowledge with insight and instinct equals wisdom. So for any leader, it's important to operate in these paradigms. If you can't be deploying leadership without knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom, everyone has access to data. You also may have access to information, but as you move up the pyramid, it's important that the knowledge management protocol, it's one of the tools you use in your engagement with your various teams. I think it's important to talk about culture. And as you know, culture is usually defined in corporates as how we do things here. Consists a collection of values, beliefs, and common goals of the organization. A distinction between culture and climate, where employees will hold at any one time a short-term view amenable to creative management. So whereas culture is how we do things around here, climate is how whatever perceptions that employees hold at any particular point in time. Culture takes a historical perspective, whereas climate is present, oriented. Culture demands and provokes climate demands certain actions and can result in either success or failure, all of which over time becomes woven into and then reflected by culture. In a sense, Egvall talks about climate being viewed as a manifestation of culture. Some research has been done with a large number of Swedish organizations and classified in the creative climate being as high, low, or average. So in your firms, it's important to think about how you measure the climate to innovation. And it really provides a score for an organization, a department, or each dimension, and tends to score more highly on each of these questionnaire skills, with the exception of conflict skill, on which of innovative organizations often obtain a low score. So where there's conflict, you will see that is reflected in the score. This looks at an innovative organization versus a stagnated organization. Whereas an innovative organization will have more open and trusting relationships, fewer personal conflicts, higher frequency of debates. They're more likely to take risks, introducing new procedures, more personal freedom in doing the job, time spent in idea generation, evaluation. So, I mean, if you look at this list, you measure it against your scenarios in your organizations to decide whether it's innovative or not, compared to the stagnation that occurs in some organizations or a lot of organizations. If you have come across any business management literature, Bellman is featured strongly about 9 main roles and types of behavior and groups. So in any team that you're putting together, it's important to think about the roles, because behaviors of the team members have an impact on the performance of the team. So irrespective of background of the team, race, color, creed, there are all sorts of challenges that are being faced in different environments around people's personal preferences and so on. So it's important to bear that in mind when you're engaging a team. Belvin found that managers behave or leaders behave in one predominant role, even though they act in other roles as well. And their preferred role is usually linked to their ability, reasoning ability, their personality characteristics, personal values, learned behaviors, and the priorities and processes of the managerial role. I mean, we could unpack this in a whole half-day session. The second point about nothing less productive than a group of creative people all pulling in different directions and following one new avenue after another without completing any of them. So in environments where people have different styles and backgrounds, It brings different angles to the issues at hand, rather than clones who are likely to adopt similar approaches. Creative people possess the following characteristics: positivity, playfulness, persistence, and passion. Now, when we talk about problems, you can't talk about problems you can't talk about solving problems without understanding what happens when problems occur. Opportunities arise, and essentially an imbalance. When there's an imbalance, then you have problems occurring. In economics, where the supply curve outstrips the demand curve, you can have scenarios where there are all sorts of issues. Excessive demand over supply puts pressure on whatever commodity that you're trying to sell. Excessive supply over demand creates a glut on the market, which then forces prices down. So any imbalance in the organization causes problems. But then also, it's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty approach. How do you see problems? Do you see that as an opportunity to challenge yourself? There's this thing that we say that when you solve problem A, problem B gets a promotion. Okay, so you would always be faced with problems, but then how do you solve problems? How do you manage problems? Those are some of the things that I was thinking about. Types of problems: simple problem, straightforward, that can be solved. Complex problems require a bit more attention, a lot more resources, and so on. A wicked problem is defined as a problem that really you have no solution to. It's really one of those impossible scenarios that you really let it play out. So these are the types of problems. In attempting to deal with any problem, there are two things you need to do: suspend judgment and avoid premature evaluation. For creativity or creative processes, there are a single loop or double loop, where when you keep repeating the same thing, I'm not sure who said that, but there's a saying that you get the same results. You keep repeating the same thing, you get the same results, and that's a definition of madness. Doing the same thing, getting the same results is a definition of madness. So that's single loop. But double loop is when espoused theory matches theory in practice. So whatever you set out to do in terms of the mission of the organization, the vision, the values, strategy, tactics, standard operating procedures, and so on, whatever is written on paper should match how you execute in practice. Now, this is a learning styles inventory. Once you experience something, that is, you define the problem as stage one. Okay, from experience, you move to reflection. Reflection gives you a new understanding to allow you to redesign. And at that stage, you start thinking of generating new ideas, or idea generation stage. Then you move on to implementation, stage 3, which is you test and action. That's the stage where you deploy your minimum viable products. That's a lot of products and services are deployed into the market. They may not necessarily be fully complete, but it allows your engagement with the market to get feedback. So you really see how effective a business plan is when it comes in contact with the market and when the rubber hits the road. Okay, so that's a useful tool when you're dealing with different ideas in an organization. Problem solving method, the Buffalo method, it goes through these various stages: mess finding, data finding, problem finding, idea finding, solution finding, and acceptance finding. So it starts stage one, going through the mess. Data may not be correlated, it may be discrete data. Finding the data, making sense of the data. And in that, you will come across the problems, move on to the ideas, solution finding, and an acceptance finding. And this method was devised in Buffalo University in New York. It's a tool that you can use as well. I mean, there's some additional reading that you can do on this. There are various stages for stage one, stage two, and stage three. I was talking earlier on about the learning styles inventory: experience, reflect, design, action. It's kind of a loop that keeps going on. Probably something like the systems transformation model, where you feed inputs, it goes through transformation, a transformation to outputs, and then after outputs, there's a feedback loop, monitor and evaluation, which allows you and informs the inputs and the transformation again. So that's also worth bearing in mind. How do you unpack problems to establish opportunity? The two key tools you can use are mind maps and tree diagrams. Again, it's again something that we can do a deeper dive on and do some in a workshop scenario, we would have done some exercises on that. But for now, to actually start unpacking problems, the two tools you can use are a mind map and tree diagram. Extensive literature on these two tools. Problem definition, the why technique. I don't know if you've ever engaged a kid. A kid can ask you about 100 whys in 5-10 minutes. Why? Because of X. Then they will ask again why. And in interrogating a problem and defining a problem, the why technique is also one of the tools you can use. You can drop key phrases and other people's definition of the problem. But you've got to be mindful of other people's definition. It may not be valid because there may be all sorts of factors that may be driving that particular definition. So from your perspective, from your internal assessments, from a strengths, weaknesses, internal dynamics of the business, finance, marketing, operations, human capital perspective, if you look externally, political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environment, how does that impact your definition of the problem? If you view the problem in that spectrum. Idea generation, brainstorming and variation, reversal and metaphors. Brainstorming and variation is also quite straightforward, engaging teams, coming from different backgrounds with different ideas to address a particular issue and generate ideas around it. The reversal technique is so for instance, you write on one side of the board or the flip chart, for instance, how to destroy an organization. You list all the things that you do to destroy an organization, and then you flip it to the positive. Why? Because from a psychological point of view, the brain it's easier for the brain to churn out negative information than positive. So the reversal technique allows you to tap into a side of the brain that brings out a lot more variables that can help you reverse. And metaphors really are significant images and words that are prevalent in your organization or industry that you can use to generate. So in your case, a built environment, what are the key metaphors that are used in there, and how does that support you in your idea generation exercise? Help hinder analysis in terms of implementation. So this is, you use I think it was Rudyard Kipling's poem. I have 6 honest 7 men. They're called what, why, who, if, sorry, what, why, who, when, how, and another I've forgotten. Rudyard Kipling's poem. You can do a deeper dive on that as well. And in terms of implementing any ideas that you have generated, you make a list of who, what, when, how, and when somebody can help you in your implementation. And then on the other side, you list who's potentially could hinder you in your implementation. And then you make a judgment call and see how you manage those relationships. I want to introduce something that we've been using in our organization for the last 6 months in defining where we want to go as an exponential organization. And one of the key things that needs to be defined if you want to play in that space of building exponential organizations is to have a massive transformative purpose. What is your purpose? What is your aspirational statement that guides, empowers, and inspires your organization? It hits your soul, is your northern star. It helps you decide what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. Now, if you look at this slide, embedded in the middle is a massive transformative purpose. Listen, this is a whole course on its own, but I thought I'll introduce it just to give you some food for thought. On the left, you have ideas, and ideas stand for interfaces, dashboards, experiments, autonomy, and social technologies, collaborative tools that have real-time conversations with transparency and connection across organizations. And on the right, you have scale. Okay, I'm not sure where the level at which your organization is and what you are thinking about in terms of growth, in terms of scaling. Now with all sorts of tools around AI and so on, is important. It gives organizations the chance or the opportunity to scale. And scale stands for, the acronym stands for staff on demand, leveraging external workers than owning employees in order to increase speed, functionality, and flexibility while decreasing fixed costs. Community and crowd, building a large community of evangelists, algorithms using AI, automated systems, leveraged assets. So what can you use? Access, rent, share, otherwise outsource assets to stay nimble, reduce capital expenditure, and then engagements through gamification, digital reputation, and so on, incentivize prices to create network effects and positive feedback loops. So this is something that we have been going through, executing bits of it and introducing bits of it in our organization. For leadership, anyone can hold the helm when the sea is calm. We are in turbulent times, post-COVID. we are dealing with issues around environment, climate change, sustainability, governance, different uh, different challenges around the globe and how that impacts. So, for instance, if you're importing stuff from China, with the challenges going on in the areas around uh, the sea around Tehran and the Houthis and so on, launching missiles and so on into vessels, uh, suddenly freight prices have gone up. If they're going to use a longer route around the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa to get to other parts of Africa, freights go up and so on. So we're in challenging times. All these things are having an impact on the global economy, which then filters down or cascades down to our local economy in terms of the Ukraine-Russian war, impact on oil prices, and also something as basic as grain that we import for uh, various foods. Okay, so when the sea is calm, any leader can pilot the vessel. For the following few slides, I am going to be using the metaphor of a leader driving or piloting or shepherding a vessel through stormy waters. So the true test of a leader in managing your teams is your ability to steer ships through waters, tempestuous waters of rapid growth, disruption, innovation, where the waves of change are constant and unpredictable. The leader must embrace a spectrum of roles, each critical to navigating the complexities of an exponential world. The leader must be an architect. So right from the constructing of the vessel for scale. So the leader building the organization, whether you're a team leader or a CEO or a manager, it's important that you are able to weather the storms and the winds of change that comes your way. And I shared the earlier slide of a scalable and adaptable framework to help navigate the high seas of market disruption. You need to be agile and have foresight. Steve Jobs quote over the innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. I think I've only got a minute, but evangelists. So you take on the.
Hi. Hi,
Hi.
Richard.
Hi.
Yeah, so please, you can still continue. We still have some time.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you the role of the leader is also pitched as some sort of evangelist or a preacher who must inspire the crew. You must create a compelling narrative. What is the future they want to see? In my organization, I have pitched to, if there are three key words that govern the work we do: access, equity, and inclusion for impact. And in sort of driving that agenda, yes, we're business people and we need to drive profitable businesses and make money. However, we also want to create impact in the spaces that we work in. So the compelling narrative that we've created, which is our North Star, guides every strategy, decision, and action. And the entire organization must have a sense of purpose and direction, all hands on deck towards a common future. Okay. The leader as an engineer. In some management tests, there is management by walking around, management by observation, and different types of management. In this particular instance, we're talking about the leader as an engineer who must create and fine-tune all the operational systems that support scalability and growth. Okay. So deploying attributes like the interfaces and dashboards, you manage complex operations efficiently, which allows the organization to respond swiftly to the changing tides of business. You see, businesses don't operate in silos or in independent environments. They operate in political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environmental spaces. And any shifts in the politics, so for instance, if we are importing cement from Burkina Faso or Niger or any of those Sahel countries with their recent pullout of ECOWAS, how does that impact on your on what you're looking to import from those markets? So the leaders also a mentor role in teams. You need to nurture a culture that prizes autonomy and social technologies. In certain organizations, in a banking system, for instance, there's a limit to the kind of autonomy that you can enjoy. Social technologies, how you make decisions and how they take action. So the mentor or the leader must ensure that the organization's culture is one of continuous learning and adaptation. I mean, in this current environment we find ourselves globally, the most important skill is your ability to unlearn and relearn. Okay. A lot of our learned, all the stuff that we've learned in the past may not necessarily fit this current paradigm of the fourth industrial revolution, because things are changing at a much faster pace than we ever imagined. And that's the only way that you can survive in the unpredictable waters of exponential growth. The leader as an investor, the leader must allocate resources to achieve maximum impact. Okay, so how do they leverage assets, engage stakeholders, magnify the organization's reach and effectiveness? Very much like a robust vessel with a better navigational tools for a long expedition. So these are all extremely important dynamics that a leader, whether a team leader, a CEO, or a manager, must have in managing teams for high performance. The leader as an ambassador, representing the organization's MTV and values, both on board. You know, organizations also have to deal with external environments. So using the metaphor of the vessel, on board the vessel, and also to those you encounter on the journey, you could be stopping at various ports, in the same way engaging with different clients, different backgrounds, and so on. And the leader must clearly articulate the mission and vision, build alliances, and foster a sense of community beyond the ship's decks. I mean, in all the things I've been talking about, I think this is one of the most important points. Constant learning and innovation, embodying the attributes of experimentation. There's, in some environments, you cannot experiment. A pilot cannot experiment whether he will land or not land a plane. In some markets, financial and so on, you cannot go and experiment there. But there must be constant learning and innovation. That's the only way you grow. I think the Japanese call it Kaizen, a process of continuous learning or lifelong learning. And a leader must be open to new ideas, approaches, and technologies that can change the course of their voyage, and always ready to adjust the sails to catch the next gust of the wind. So these are my thoughts, and I'm open for questions, clarifications, and any contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richard Osei-Anim. So at this point, I would open the floor to our audience for any questions. Okay, so I can see Daniel Johnson has his hand raised. Daniel, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Salma. Good morning, and thank you for the very insightful presentation. I would like to ask, in your rich experience of leadership and teamwork, I want to know, how can leadership contribute to creating a collaborative and supportive work environment? Thank you.
Okay, so I think the very first thing is really the kinds of people you select to join your team. I personally like to hire people that are smarter than me. So I like to hire sharp men and women who will add value. I like to hire people that will challenge me. I like to hire people that I can allow to get on with it. The nature of our work, we work in education technology. We're dealing with owners of schools, head teachers, parent-teacher associations, teachers, unions, and so on. And you require a certain level of emotional intelligence. There's always a big focus on IQ, but IQ can get you only far. There's a book by Daniel Goleman, Goleman, Daniel Goleman, which delves into emotional intelligence. I think it should be standard text for everybody in school. If you haven't seen it, I think the very first edition, there's some free PDF on Google, but I don't think it's that expensive. Amazon, you can get it on Amazon. It's an important book which gives you insight into our emotional intelligence and how we build high-performing teams. So for me, it starts at recruitment stage. And once they are recruited, what sort of support do you give them to be able to play as part of a high-performing team? And being upfront and sometimes vulnerable. And yeah, so I think those are the key elements of creating an environment of openness. I think there was a slide that I shared which looked at the difference between an innovative and this slide, between an innovative and stagnating environments. And it will apply to building a team that collaborates, open, trusting relationships, fewer personal conflicts, debates and discussion. In certain environments, debates get personal, but debates should only be about ideas. And I have this thing I say in teams I lead, is that I don't care where the idea comes from. If it's a superior argument, you make a superior, you can defend it. We will go with your idea. And as a leader, I take responsibility, even though I have not necessarily outsourced, but I have given room to people to share their ideas. So I think this slide deals with your question, and it applies to how you build collaborative teams to drive your agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Daniel, please, I hope you're satisfied with the response.
Yes, please. I'm very satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you too. So please, team, you can also access the chat box. If you're unable to speak at the moment, you can just drop a message in the chat box and we would read it out for you. So whilst we wait on, Daniel, I still see your hand raised. Okay, so whilst we wait on more questions, I would also like to use this opportunity to ask a question still on emotional intelligence. If in the context of leadership and team collaboration, what role does emotional intelligence play, and how have you seen it impact decision-making processes in an organization, since it's one of the sought after soft skills now?
You've actually asked a question which requires a thesis. Emotional intelligence is everything. I mean, how you respond to requests. Sometimes people leave home in a bad mood and arrive at work in that same bad mood, forgetting that there are two distinct environments. However, we are humans, and we are what's the word I'm looking for? We are impacted by all sorts of circumstances. So if your partner annoys you at home, that emotional intelligence demands that you are able to keep it distinct from a work environment, and vice versa. My wife, when we first got married, I would come home with all sorts of issues and go into a mood, and promptly reminds me that, dude, whatever happened out there, you leave it at the door. We at home haven't done anything to you for you to come and give us attitude. Okay, and it's that same kind of understanding when you're dealing in teams. I talked about getting personal, focusing on. It's tough, but you've got to keep the main thing the main thing. There's a book by it's an old book, but I think it's also relevant. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Franklin Covey. I mean, I'm sure if you don't want to buy it, you'll find snippets of it on Google. And it's really dealing with the emotional intelligence and how you deal with different people from different backgrounds. One of the biggest challenges facing Africa now is how we deal with this whole issue from the West around sexual orientation. You may not travel and go and work in those environments, but you may still be, as part of a global entity, would have to be dealing with people. How do you navigate those spaces, for instance, from an ultra charismatic, point of view, and the challenges that people have in that kind of space? So Yes, emotional intelligence is everything. It's one of the, if you need a glue that binds teams together, then ability to manage emotions and stick to the hardcore facts are extremely important.
All right. Thank you so much for that insightful response. Okay, let me kindly check in that chat box. Okay. So we have a comment from Madam Beryl says, thank you very much for such informative presentation. And sorry. Okay. Sorry, just a second. Please, are you able to elaborate on specific tools, methodologies, or frameworks that you find particularly useful for enhancing team collaboration and decision-making? Thank you. So I think you've touched on a number of them. Maybe if you could just elaborate further for analysts.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about teamwork, they say there is no I in team, but there's also me in team. Okay. There is no I in team, but there is me in team. So you still have to be dealing with individuals. Okay. In any organization, if you imagine a pyramid, the individual feeds into a team, and the output from the team feeds into the organizational output. So it's a blend of an individual in a team that has an impact on the ultimate output of the organization. I talked about a bit about creative people and the characteristics they possess: positivity, playfulness, persistence, and passion. These are core elements of people that come to a team. Yes, there are people that are grumpy. There are people that, I mean, there are some people that you can't have a drink with. There are some people that say that, look, I'm here to work, and after work, I don't engage with people from work. But for team cohesion, it's important that you should be able to have a drink with your team. You should be able to have a meal with your team. You should be able to have, there are other things apart from work. And for me, the best ideas that we have had has come out in our most relaxed environments, in over a bottle of beer or a meal in a restaurant and so on. People tend to loosen up, and they tend to be free for ideas to flow. Our trip to London was instigated by a few shots of whiskey. And I mean, those are the sorts of things that, but for collaborative tools, there are all sorts of tools that you can use. There's Slack, there's Asana, there is Loom. There are all sorts of tech tools that, depending on what you are looking to achieve in an organization, those tools can help you to support. Frequent meetings. You setting your timelines at the beginning of the week, everybody understanding where the team is going, and reviewing it midweek or Thursday in anticipation for the following week's review and new targets is all important. What else haven't I touched on? Yeah, I think these are the ones that readily come to mind. Yeah, hello.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just having a little challenge with my internet. And please, we still have some time for questions to come in so that they can quickly be addressed for us. Okay, so whilst we wait on other questions, I would want to ask again, how do you navigate conflicts within a team and ensure that decision-making processes remain effective and unbiased? Richard, please, if you can.
I mean, conflicts have to be,
kindly help me out with this question.
yeah, conflicts have to be addressed.
Okay, so how to...
Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Richard.
Can you hear me?
Please, clear.
Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
conflicts have to be addressed head on. Whoever you are in conflict with, you need to be able to sit down and have a conversation about what to do, the do's and the don'ts. If there are policies that or standard operating procedures in the firm, those are what you go by, and you can refer to them. You can point people to them and so on. So where the organization has clear mandates or clear guidelines, those are what you refer to. But again, coming back to the fact that we are humans, is the way sometimes we address these conflicts that has a potential to either escalate it or de-escalate. The way we talk, the way we communicate, you don't put more petrol on a raging fire. So really, it goes down to communication. It goes down to emotional intelligence. It goes down to policies and guidelines that the organization has put in place to guide everybody in that organization. Over to you. Looks like we've lost Madam Moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, and sorry about the internet instability. So at this juncture, I would begin to wrap up our session, and we have learned a lot, and I in particular have had a better understanding of the roles I can play to ensure an effective team collaboration on some projects we work on and even within the organization. And I want to believe it's so for other audience. And that aside, I've also learned the roles of a leader. And I believe anytime I am put in the position of a leader, I should be able to deliver effortlessly. And yes, so yes. Hello, everyone. So thank you so much, Mr. Anim, for this awesome presentation and honoring our invitation
in progress.
once again to share your experiences and knowledge on such a relevant topic in the infrastructure space. And to our amazing audience.
I've seen a question
Yeah,
here.
hello, Richard.
Hi. I think there's a question in the chat.
Okay, yes. So from Kwame Ganza, he says, do leaders have favorites in their teammates? So do leaders have favorites among their teammates or members?
Yeah, it's natural for good or ill, for leaders to have favorites. They may share certain attributes, characteristics, and so on. And it's how it is managed. So there are accusations. So every year, I'm sure there will be reviews. There will be your manager or your leader will call you for a review. Sometimes a 360-degree feedback, where feedback is obtained from people you work with, your teammates, from clients, and sometimes your partners and spouses. I mean, it's been known to include in that 360-degree feedback, and that gives you an indication of how people view you. That exercise. Ideally, we are not supposed to have favorites in that kind of scenario in a work environment, but it will be hypocritical to say that people don't people do business with people they like. It's fundamental. You won't want to do business with your enemy, would you? So there are degrees of this. There are degrees of this in different organizations. There are some leaders don't know how to manage it and they abuse it and make it so obvious, and that has an impact on morale of other teammates. So it's without a doubt, people will always have favorites, but it's about how it's managed. If it's not managed properly, then there are there are bound to be problems, and it could have an impact on morale and performance of the team.
Okay, so Kwame, I believe the last statements would have answered your follow-up question on if it, and I'm sure we can all take it. Okay, so since there are no further questions, I would wrap up. It's always a pleasure having you, Mr. Richard Osei-Anim, to share your experiences and knowledge, most especially on relevant topics within built environments and the infrastructure space we find ourselves. And we hope that when next we call on you, you'd surely be available to share your experiences. And so, our amazing audience, thank you so much for yet participating in another Q&A session. And we hope to meet you same time next week in the infrastructure space. Thank you all, and do have a great week ahead. Bye.
Thank you.